Of all the songs on Chat Pal's Cool World, I don't think I've ever felt such visceral horror with this song. Chat Pile, if you somehow don't know, are a brutal sludge metal band that make music that makes me want to scream out of panic. Their big debut, God's Country, was so rich with anger and seething throughout, the closer being someone having a bad trip, some kind of bad drug trip, and panicking out of it to be left alone with such unformed instrumentals. Wicked Puppet Dance is a track about a wicked puppet, one blown to bits and left behind as a gory carcass, about the glorification of lynching and crucifixion turned into a sick ritual. My favorite off that album was I Don't Care If I Burn, the pre-closer, a track with an extremely sparse drum beat and acoustic strum as the narrator laments over their torment through careful singing about pure hatred.
You may not see me now, but motherfucker, I see you.
Which just boils and boils before erupting into a horrific scream. Which should give you an idea what kind of band this is. They're a visceral, sludge noise metal band that digs into the horror of the world. And for the most part, I do love the band's music, but I can't say I'm great at following the intense nihilism and contempt in the music. God's Country is intense for sure, but I would say their most recent album, Cool World, was the same story, or at least to a more direct and angry degree. Cool World is an ugly, ugly album about the state of existing, about the terror that comes with the reality that you live in the darkest, twisted version of the worst nightmare you were warned about. Where God's Country showed a large power plant with an intense, industrialized, brutal transformer at the front, blocking the human creation, the second album has a cross laid out in the middle of dead land, only a stoplight in the corner while the cross stands over a gloomy, polluted, almost yellow sky. The acceptance of the terror in the closer, the complete self-loathing uselessness in I Am Dog Now, and despite that, I struggled to follow. I said so in my honorable mentions video. I just couldn't follow the more nihilistic tone of the album. That was when I wrote it in December, and even up until recording in late January, I hadn't yet reached that more dead perspective. I certainly have that perspective now. Due to some miserable circumstances, I've become really fucking pessimistic. I just don't really care. I become super numb and tired because the reality is that to most people, the issues of the world and the way it makes their lives miserable doesn't really matter. Those issues are not going to change or get better, and no matter what you show people, they're not going to learn anything, which has been really fucking exhausting. I wouldn't say I like Cool World more. I prefer God's Country's experimentation, but I came off almost negative in my portrayal of Cool World. Terror in the face of trouble works a lot better here, and there is one song that cements that horror. The New World, which I originally thought was titled Cool World, my bad, is a song about the realization that you are living in the terror, the dystopia, the horror, that the horrors of the violent, tyrannical regime is here, and you are left to suffer in the agony. It begins with the narrator simply begging for their existence. The poetry of death reigning strong as the narrator shrieks the chorus in low, raspy yells. To have your existence essentially decided for you, with elements of your humanity being sold and scrapped for parts. The ending line, most are dragged, kicking and screaming out into the new world, is a horrible line. Just the sheer nightmare that the way people are brought into the terror is only through the fact that you're being pulled in. You're never able to choose whether you confront it. You're dragged into its cloud of vapor. It is a fucking nightmare of a song. The tone of the guitars creating this ambience of pure worry and stress. Few songs get my adrenaline running as much as I love that sensation. It is quite hard to find, and especially because I've gotten used to it, but this album is a fucking panic attack. This song is one of the few that still kicks that feeling up, and I hate that sensation that causes it. The second verse is even worse. It almost sounds like a suicide note. That being an observer to the terror around is just heart-pounding, but that it's still personal, and yet you can only watch in grief. The death rattle hums even as the narrator is taken in. The chorus plays again as that reality sets in, with people losing their humanity at the face of an inhuman machine rushing them into a grinder to die. The harshest line to me is the line, "I don't want to be the reason you don't talk." I can't really tell you a line that opened me up to such fear. This line fucking scares me. The idea that you, of all people, are part of the reason that people go quiet in fear of being targeted and killed, that your desire to keep peace drives people into silence and hiding. The idea that you become a piece of the machine that brings people silence, but that's not the only thing. The idea that you alone have the power to dehumanize through the terror of being afraid and scared. And the idea that a person could be this distraught at that idea, that they contribute to the pain at the reality of the world, is just awful. And as I've become more aware of that situation for those closest to me, the terror in getting people to become quiet in the face of the pain just lingers with such contempt and sickness. I've never heard a set of lyrics dig that fucking deep into anything, and it breaks my heart. And it's even worse because I feel that way all the time. The New World is a disturbing track about being dragged into the nightmare. Once thought of a horrible dream, distant and fictional, whispers in the background, becomes a trembling reality ahead as the people numb to the situation struggle to process the constant horror and failings of a careless system bringing everyone down to their knees for the purpose of nothing. The idea that even you become that machine, not out of trying to carry its cords, but just out of trying to survive. Sludge metal is a special genre because no other form of distortion and lyrical meaning really sets in the kind of anger that metal sometimes fails to. Almost every sludge metal album I hear really just feels like you're about to snap. Chat Pile succeeds by taking that noise metal and just burning it alive, about the desire to hold in the anger before it comes out and you end up hurting, but Cool World feels like grief. It absolutely hurts to listen to. There aren't many metal songs that really come out that feel like crying out, but this one is that song. The album itself is massively disturbing and perturbed, but The New World specifically sounds like grief. I hate listening to it because I completely relate to the narrator's overwhelming dread and fear. They don't want to be part of this. They want it to end. They want to be let go, but they're stuck to watch on as the world rots, watching the people closest to them vanish into that good night because the abyss where they are not known is better than the exposure of a world that wants them gone.